If lactation support could be the first thing that we are recommending to new families, it would be absolutely miraculous for these babies. Whether it is latching, whether it is finding the right formula, whether it is addressing a tongue tie or a lip tie or buccal ties in the right way and a holistic approach, rather than, from my pediatrician, they looked in my son's mouth and said, nope, it's fine. What's going to happen when it's not fine? What's going to happen when their palate is extremely narrow and their mouth breathing and they're diagnosed with ADHD? It's just the waterfall here of the cascade of, all of these small little things add up that no one's talking about. So here we are, we're talking about them. And I hope that this conversation finds its way to the people who need to listen to it the most. Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
Hey there, welcome back to All Things Sensory by Harkla. So happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel, pediatric occupational therapy assistant and mom of two. I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I still feel like I'm in the thick of it, and that's okay. Today, I'm going to be talking about some of my hot takes with the pediatrician's office, what I wish we would see more of, and what I wish we would see less of, specifically at a pediatrician's visit. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not in any way, shape, or form harping on pediatricians. That is not the goal of today's episode. As you all know, you've been here for so long, it is just me sharing from a therapeutic standpoint what I think could be improved for new moms and new parents who go to the pediatrician's office. I'm going to start with the things that I wish that pediatricians would not do, specifically for newborns, that early age when we're going to the office of a pediatrician, every couple of months. The first thing, which we've talked about, but I wish that they would stop saying, wait and see, or they'll grow out of it. Because yeah, sometimes they will. But specifically in my situation, when my son was presenting with torticollis and I brought it up at the pediatrician's office, my first pediatrician said, it's fine. As I'm holding him up and his neck is cranked to the side, I'm like, this is not fine. This is not okay. And I did not get a referral to OT or PT. I left the office and I went and figured it out on my own. Thankfully, I have the resources because I am a therapist, but that is not the kind of approach that we need because you don't grow out of torticollis. It turns into plagiocephaly, which absolutely it did. For him, it turned into scaphocephaly and the sides of his head were completely flat because he couldn't keep his head in neutral in midline. It kept falling to the left and to the right, and he had the crookedest neck that you will ever see. That's just one example. There's so many other examples of speech and language. They'll start talking eventually. Let's just wait and see. They'll start crawling eventually. It's not that important. It is that important. Very much so. So that's one of the things that I would really like to see kind of phase out of our pediatrician appointments. The next thing that I'd love to see not happening anymore at pediatrician visits is the let's start them on rice cereal at 4 months old. Yes, that is what is oftentimes recommended, not in every case, but here's why from a therapeutic standpoint, I don't think that that should be recommended at all. First of all, a child needs to be able to sit up unsupported independently so that way they can clear their airway if, God forbid, they choke on something. When a child is 4 months old and they're starting solids, what kind of chair are they sitting in? Are they in a bouncer? Are they in that reclined position? Are they in a bumbo seat? No, we don't want them in those positions before they can sit in those positions or be in those positions unassisted. So number one, at least 6 months old. When I shared about this on social media, I got a lot of comments from people saying that their kids didn't sit until they were 11 months old. And I'm like, then we should really go slow with starting solids because it's a safety concern. I also feel like those high chairs need to have foot support, and we need to make sure that if the high chair doesn't have foot support, that we're modifying them. I put a box on the footrest of my kids' high chairs in order to make sure that their feet could touch and they could have stability. Because if you ever felt when you're sitting at a bar or you're sitting at a stool and your feet don't touch anything, they just wiggle there and you just feel like you're going to fall into the deep dark abyss. That's exactly how our kids feel, and we want to give them as much stability as possible, which is again why we shouldn't be having them start solids at 4 months old, because they're just wobbly little beings. So let's wait until they can sit. Okay, another hot topic is I don't believe that pediatricians should be providing Miralax and recommending Miralax for constipation for pediatric clients. Number one, it's not even approved for pediatric clients, and there is a lot of research showing that there's a lot of side effects. So number one, I think that pediatricians, everyone should be looking for the root cause. We shouldn't allow babies for it to be, an okay thing for them to go 11 days without pooping. We shouldn't allow kids to go 5 days without pooping. Typically, there's an underlying cause. Typically, there isn't a reason why a child isn't pooping. It's a nutritional issue. It's a postural control issue. It's a fear issue. There's a cause. So let's try and find that underlying cause rather than just putting a Band-Aid on the symptoms and providing a laxative like Miralax. The other area that I think needs to be addressed when we're talking about symptoms is colic. I feel like we hear so many families struggling with babies who are colicky. I feel like so many pediatricians are just prescribing a reflux medication for colic. Now, sometimes colic is due to a baby struggling with reflux, but again, reflux is a normal thing that babies are, kind of designed to deal with. I don't think that we should be saying that a baby is just colicky without digging a little bit deeper and trying to find the true underlying cause. Colic is just a symptom. So let's do the work and figure out what the baby is truly struggling with in order to help them feel the most comfortable that they can in their little bodies. And then the last area that I just want to touch on is that I think that pediatricians, and again, this isn't for every pediatrician, but I think that in a lot of cases, new moms, new dads their concerns are being brushed off as that's normal, that's okay, that's just what happens. And their true questions aren't being answered. I think a lot of those questions are getting brushed off. I was speaking with our videographer who just gave birth and had a baby, and she took her sweet little newborn into the office, and they didn't explain sleep or tongue ties or feeding schedules or baby wearing. There was none of that education. It was like, good luck, go care for this tiny little human. Call us if you need anything. And it's just so frustrating because yes, it's biological that we should know how to do these things, but there are so many questions that come up that are you going to Google it? Like we need our doctors to be the ones to provide this information to us and to say, here's what you can do. Here are some strategies. Let's try this. Here's this resource. I just had a client come to me and say that their pediatrician recommended my Instagram account. Like, what? That's so crazy. I love it. But that's also just so cool to see that pediatricians are going out of their comfort zone and saying, I don't know a whole lot about that, but here are some trusted resources that you can learn more about it. So those are just a few. I'm sure there's more than I can think of. But again, I don't want this to come across as me saying that pediatricians aren't doing a good job, because in a lot of cases they are, but their expertise is medicine. It's not baby wearing, tummy time, crawling, development, sleep, nutrition, right? So we have to make sure that pediatricians are providing those outside resources whenever possible. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about what I feel like pediatricians should do more of and what they should be providing from a therapeutic standpoint. Again, I'm not harping on pediatricians. I just want to make that clear. We are a team here, and I think that is so important to remember. But it would be really cool if pediatricians, I'm going to start with this one, would do a simple, quick assessment on primitive reflexes. I recently worked with a client who is a PA in a very rural area, and she reached out to me and she's like, I want to learn how that I can screen for primitive reflexes after working with her daughter with me and kind of figuring out that area of difficulty. She said, how can I support my clients? And of course, I gave her all the resources and taught her everything that she needs to know, so that way she can be that person and be that pediatrician for her clients and sending them in the right direction if they need it. But how cool would it be if we could see those primitive reflexes integrating, and if they're not integrating, sending our clients and our kiddos to the professionals who can help with that, or at least giving some activities that can help kind of work on that. And I think the education standpoint, like this is what an ATNR is. This is what is happening in your baby's brain when that reflex is integrating. And this is what you're going to see, and this is how you're going to help it. That would be really cool. Also, I think it would be awesome if pediatricians would give activity recommendations to help support things like tummy time, rolling, sitting, crawling, walking. Here is a handout with some ways that you can, support your child's ability to roll in both directions. Here is a checklist of some tummy time activities. Here's how you can provide a variety of sensory-based activities to help their senses grow and develop in those first few years of life. That would be really cool to see. If not, referring them in the direction that could be really helpful for them. I think that'd be magical. I also think it would be really cool if pediatricians would explain the benefit of messy play to their clients and how important it is to have a well-rounded diet, whole foods, full foods, maybe recommending GI map testing in order to make sure that the child's digestive system is doing everything that it needs to do. I feel like this is something that I did with both of my kids, and it was so helpful to understand how their specific guts were working and what wasn't working and what we needed to do in order to support them, in order to prevent some long-term issues that could have potentially happened. So those types of situations would be really helpful for pediatricians to recommend. And just, again, referring to OT and PT rather than having families beg for it. I think that therapy, speech therapy, OT, PT, I think those are resources that are invaluable to families. And educating them on early intervention. The earlier we can support a child's sensory system, the earlier that we can get our kiddos crawling, the better off their development will be academically, socially, emotionally in the future, and having those conversations. I know that time is limited, but I think that's where those extra resources can be really valuable. Another hot take would be lactation. I feel like if lactation support could be the first thing that we are recommending to new families, it would be absolutely miraculous for these babies. Whether it is latching, whether it is finding the right formula, whether it is addressing a tongue tie or a lip tie or buccal ties in the right way and a holistic approach, rather than for my pediatrician, they looked in my son's mouth and said, nope, it's fine. Thankfully, we were going that same direction and we kind of addressed that on our own. But again, if you're told it's fine, what's going to happen when it's not fine? What's going to happen when their palate is extremely narrow and their mouth breathing and they're diagnosed with ADHD? It's just the waterfall here, the cascade of, all of these small little things add up that no one's talking about. So here we are, we're talking about them. And I hope that this conversation finds its way to the people who need to listen to it the most. I think that education on baby wearing, safely baby wearing, would be really cool. I think it'd be really awesome if we were hearing families' concerns and validating them and empathizing with them rather than saying, it's fine. That's just what babies do. Babies cry for 6 hours at a time. It's okay. They don't have to poop every day. When in reality, it's so important that they do these things. So hopefully you hear me, and hopefully these hot takes are something that you can continue to advocate for your own kiddos. Hopefully this is an episode that you can share with others. Maybe you can share this with a new family or an expecting family. We do have a free checklist that I'm going to link in the show notes that has questions that you can take to your pediatrician at each of the different office visits. And it just kind of keeps you on track, and it holds you accountable, and it holds them accountable. And you can ask them these questions. And also, if it's not the right fit, you don't have to stay with this pediatrician. I think I'm on my third pediatrician now, maybe fourth, and it didn't feel right until we found a place that listened to us and did the tests that we wanted to do. And it ended up being a functional medicine practitioner. And I think that's the perfect fit for us. It doesn't always have to be that way. There's pros and cons to all of it. But just know that they work for you, and they need to be answering your questions to the best of their ability. And they need to be referring when you ask for a referral. So that's a mouthful. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your kindness. I appreciate your support. Make sure that you share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Make sure that you are subscribed either on YouTube, Spotify, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. And we drop a new episode every Wednesday, so make sure that you check out those. But again, thank you so much for being here. Reach out with questions, let us know your thoughts, and we'll plan on seeing you for another episode next week. Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.